how to fly like Superman more than once. You need the invention that is the theme of today's video. You need a parachute. So, when was it invented? Contrary to what may seem, the parachute has a long history. Really long. The earliest accounts come from Chinese manuscripts dating back 4,000 years. Legend has it that a Chinese monarch safely jumped from a burning barn using 2 bamboo hats. It may not sound like much, but it already shows that they understood that devices like that could slow down a free-falling body. We also can't forget to mention Leonardo da Vinci, who around the year 1485 sketched a primitive pyramid-shaped parachute as part of his studies in aerodynamics. It's unclear whether he built a prototype of this invention, but it inspired other inventors to work on the idea, an idea that at that point was no longer new. You could say it was in the air in medieval toys and barroom discussions. So, defining who was the first inventor of the parachute becomes extremely difficult, given the various accounts of inventors who would have designed similar devices before the famous Italian. Anyway, the inventors who came after him continued to develop the idea. Inventors like the Croatian Fausto Verancio, who allegedly built a device based on Leonardo da Vinci's idea and jumped from a tower in Venice in 1617. However, the jumping part is considered a legend by many. The person currently most accepted as the first to design and test a functional parachute in public is the Frenchman Louis-Sébastien Lenormand. In December 1783, he jumped from the top of the Montpellier Observatory in France using a parachute made of cloth and wood, resembling a large umbrella, measuring 4.3 meters in diameter. Yeah, this drawing is a bit out of scale. Better this way. His initial idea was for this device to be used to jump from a burning building, which probably wouldn't work, right? And here's the curious part. On the day of the jump, among the numerous onlookers waiting for Louis Lenormand to crash to the ground was Joseph Montgolfier, an inventor who was at that time working on the development of the hot air balloon. He had already made 3 major public demonstrations with the balloon that year. But back to Louis Lenormand, luckily for him, and to the amazement of the audience, the test went well and he emerged unharmed. And this wasn't his first brave jump. Months earlier, he had tested the idea by jumping from a tree using 2 small umbrellas, each 1.5 meters in diameter. The guy was a bit crazy, don't you think? Jean-Pierre François Blanchard went a step further in the use of the parachute, considering it as a means of escaping from balloons in case of problems. However, he also realized that there was no way to carry those large wooden parachute structures in the balloon. It was then that he had the brilliant idea of building a parachute using only silk, which was folded and placed in the balloon. An idea he decided to test in 1785, throwing a dog with the parachute from a balloon. As far as I could verify, the test was successful, but it was a deplorable attitude, don't you think? He also claimed the title of being the first person to jump from a balloon using a parachute. The alleged event would have occurred in 1793 when his hot air balloon ruptured during flight. But as there were no witnesses, the milestone is not recognized. This milestone would be attributed to another Frenchman named André-Jacques Garnerin. In 1797, he became the first real parachutist in history by jumping from a balloon at 1,000 meters using a parachute without a rigid structure with a diameter of 9.2 meters. The test took place in front of a large audience in October 1797 and was not really a jump from the balloon. What he did was ascend the 1,000 meters with the hydrogen balloon and then cut it off, causing the parachute attached to the basket to take shape and safely carry him to the ground. Well, he broke his ankle, but he still considered the test a success. The optimism stemmed from the fact that he had charged admission to the spectators, so the effort had brought in a few bucks. Another interesting fact is that on that day, one of the spectators who witnessed Garnerin's tumultuous descent, a French astronomer named Jérôme Lalande, suggested that he make a small hole in the center of the parachute to improve the stability of the descent, something the parachutist tested, approved, and was adopted as a standard in later designs. An important audience member was his future wife, Jeanne Geneviève, whom he met that day. She would become the first female parachutist in October 1799 when she jumped from a hydrogen balloon at 900 meters. And she was the one responsible for registering the patent for her husband in October 1802. A patent for a device called a parachute, intended to slow the fall of the basket after the balloon burst. A registration that allowed them to live a comfortable life, in addition to financing their aeronautical experiments. but for the British Robert Cocking, the parachute's story wasn't very good. In July 1837, he had the misfortune of becoming the first fatality of the invention after his parachute opened the seams, turned inside out, and tangled. Another problem was that the parachute he designed was too heavy relative to its size, around 113 kilos including the basket. So even if the parachute didn't tear, the result would still be the same. In 1890, two German circus artists, Paul Lederman and Katchen Paulus, invented the method of folding the parachute and putting it in a backpack to be worn on the back. Supposedly, they would also have invented this smaller parachute that opens first and pulls the main parachute. The first jump from an airplane using a parachute is a disputed milestone between two Americans and would have happened between 1911 and 1912. Both Grant Morton and Army Captain Albert Berry claimed the title. The controversy persists to this day. The first combat use of the parachute would have occurred during World War I. It was used as a means of escape from observation balloons that were extremely dangerous for the observers. Besides being filled with highly flammable hydrogen gas, they were a very visible target for enemy planes. So, as soon as enemy aircraft were spotted, observers jumped from the balloon using parachutes. Initially, it was around this same period, precisely in August 1918, that Italy carried out the first combat jump. It was a reconnaissance and sabotage mission, conducted by Lieutenant Alessandro Tandura. He spent weeks hiding, sending spy reports via carrier pigeons that he had taken with him. But it was the Soviet Union that around 1930 used parachuting for mass soldier drops for the first time, creating the first airborne unit the following year, in 1931. The peak of these operations occurred during World War II, in the Allied military operation called Market Garden, which dropped more than 41,000 paratroopers behind enemy lines. Since then, the parachute has been used in numerous military operations for recreational purposes, and even by NASA. That's right, many don't realize it, but they are already on other planets, slowing down spacecraft during landing. The strongest parachutes in the solar system. Well, I'll stop here. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and share.